You know what? It's one thing to know what God has said, to quote his promises, to even recall his commandments. But it's another thing entirely to rest in the one who spoke them. Ahaz knew the prophecies. He knew the covenant. He even heard God's own offer of a sign. Yet fear still won the argument in his heart. When we stop trusting the God of the Word becomes information rather than transformation. We start relying on our logic, our resources, or our Assyria instead of his faithfulness. And what happens then? The Word we know no longer anchors us. It starts to testify against us. So the question isn't, do I know Scripture? The question is, do I believe the one who breathed it? Because faith is not proven by what we can recite, but by what we rely on when everything else trembles. How about the next question? Have I ever made my own Assyria, turning to something that replaced God in my trust? Ahaz didn't simply lose faith, he traded it. When he sent tribute from God's temple to Assyria, he wasn't just seeking help, he was transferring allegiance. He bowed to fear and crowned a new master. Our Assyria might not wear armor or demand gold, but idolatry doesn't always look like worshiping another god. Sometimes it's trusting another source. Whenever we depend on money, status, medicine, technology, or even ministry itself more than living God, we've made our own altar in Damascus. And the frightening truth is that what we enthrone in fear will one day rule us in bondage. So we have to ask ourselves, have we given something else the trust that belongs only to Yahweh? Here's the final question for this week. This was for our church, right? As we lived together during Sukkot, were there moments that reminded you how easily small frustrations can grow into division, even among those who love each other? You know, every year we celebrate this Feast of Sukkot where we go and tabernacle or we put up tents or camp together, right? And for us, this becomes a time where we have this glimpse of what it will mean to dwell together. We share a space, we share meals, we worship, we do daily life together. But sometimes it reveals how easily little things, unmet expectations, misunderstandings, or unspoken irritations can begin to divide what God meant to unite. That's not failure, it's a mirror. It shows us what still needs to be healed in our own hearts. So just like Israel in the wilderness, God sometimes lets us walk together long enough to surface what's hiding underneath, so he can make us one, not just in word, but also in spirit. All right, guys. So that's the things that I want you to think through as we begin to look at this week's passage. Now, I'm going to give you a little more context to what my thought process is as I'm working my way through Isaiah. Because, you know, there is great division in the world that we live in. And I would say that I'm pretty uniquely qualified to talk about differences in my life, right?